"I am pregnant," Cassandra Wren announced at my dining table, with one hand resting on my husband's sleeve and the other on the folder that would have stolen my house. My mother-in-law smiled as if I had already died. "Elena, don't be selfish. Hawthorne Villa should go into the Vale Family Trust before your condition gets worse." Adrian did not defend me. He only slid a pen across the polished wood and said, "Sign it tonight, and we can all stop pretending you're strong enough to manage anything." I looked at the pen, then I looked at my husband, the man who had taken this same villa from me in my last life while I was too weak to lift my head from a hospital pillow. This time, I did not cry. I took off my wedding ring, placed it on top of the unsigned authorization form, and turned my phone slightly under the table so the recording light kept glowing. I heard every word. I said, "The room went quiet. They thought I was cornered. They did not know I had already come back from the grave with the deed still in my name." Adrian stared at my wedding ring as if I had thrown a glass of wine in his face. "Elena," he said softly, the way he always spoke when he wanted everyone else in the room to think he was the patient one, "don't make a scene." The funny thing was, I had spent 7 years not making scenes. I had smiled when his mother corrected the way I set my own dining table. I had stayed quiet when his cousins joked that Hawthorne Villa was basically a Vale property now. I had transferred money when Adrian said his firm was going through a temporary cash flow issue. I had opened my home to his relatives for birthdays, memorials, board retreats, holiday weekends, and one disastrous vow renewal party for his parents that cost more than my first car. I had done all of it because I thought marriage meant giving until both people felt safe. Then I died and learned that some people do not feel safe when you give, they feel entitled. Now I was alive again, sitting in the same dining room where my previous life had begun its final collapse. The chandelier above the table was the same. The sea beyond the windows was the same. The roast lamb, Margaret Vale's favorite, was untouched on the silver platter because everyone was too busy waiting for me to sign away my grandmother's house. Cassandra Wren sat beside my husband in a pale blue dress, looking fragile and expensive. She had always been good at looking like a woman life had injured gently. In my last life, I believed that in my last life, when Adrian told me Cassandra had moved into our guest house because she was in danger after a bad breakup, I made soup for her. I found her a therapist. I even gave her the sunlit upstairs room when she said the guest house felt lonely. 3 months later, when my diagnosis became harder to hide, she stopped calling me kind. She called me unstable, then she called me inconvenient. By the time I was lying in a private hospital room with tubes in my arm and a mouth so dry I could barely speak, Cassandra had already picked out new curtains for my bedroom. Adrian brought the papers himself. "Just sign, Elena," he whispered beside my bed. "You don't need the villa anymore, Cassandra, and I need somewhere to build a life." I remembered the pen pressing between my fingers. I remembered the nurse looking away. I remembered Cassandra standing by the door in white, one hand on the slight curve of her stomach. I remembered dying in a rented hospice room while my grandmother's house became their wedding venue, and now Cassandra was at my table again, asking for my life before I had even lost it. "You're recording, aren't you?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was light, but her eyes had sharpened. Adrian's hand twitched. Margaret leaned forward, recording family members at dinner. "How sick." I smiled a little, not because anything was funny, because in my last life, they had used that word against me until everyone believed it. Sick wife, sick mind, sick woman, too sick to know what was good for her, too sick to own property, too sick to be angry. I picked up my phone and placed it face up on the table. The red recording line glowed between the wine glasses. "Yes," I said, "I am recording." Adrian's face hardened for half a second before he softened it again for the room. His uncle Robert cleared his throat. His cousin Marlene looked down at her plate. Everyone had come tonight expecting a quiet transfer of power dressed up as concern. Nobody had expected me to name it. "Turn it off," Adrian said. "No." His eyes flashed. There he was, not the devoted husband with a tired smile, not the man who kissed my forehead in public and let me pay his private debts in silence, not the man who told my doctors he was handling everything while he handled my assets, just Adrian Vale. Angry because his script had been interrupted, Margaret slapped her palm on the table. "This is exactly what I mean. Your mood is not stable. You were diagnosed 2 weeks ago. You should not be making legal decisions alone." "I was diagnosed with stage 2 lymphoma," I said, "not dementia." A small sound moved around the table. In my last life, I had hidden the diagnosis for too long because I was ashamed of needing help. When Adrian found out, he cried in the shower where I could hear him. I thought he was grieving for me. He was already calculating. This time, I had woken up 3 hours before dinner with my cheek against the cold bathroom tile, my body shaking from a memory that had not happened yet. I had looked at my reflection and touched my own face, alive, thinner than I wanted, pale, hair still mine, eyes still mine. Then I had opened the drawer under the sink and found the appointment card from Dr. Cross, dated that morning, the same day, the day Adrian stopped pretending. I spent the next 2 hours doing what my old self had been too heartbroken to do. I backed up every shared account statement, I downloaded every mortgage, tax, insurance, and maintenance record for Hawthorne Villa. I copied the deed, which was still solely in my name because my grandmother had been a stubborn woman with better instincts than I had. Then I put my phone in my lap before dinner. Stage 2 can become stage 4, Margaret said coldly, and nobody here is trying to hurt you, we're trying to protect the family. The family, I repeated. Adrian exhaled. Elena, I turned to him. When did you have the family trust documents drafted? His jaw tightened. Cassandra looked at her water glass. That was enough, but I waited. Adrian said, a week ago. You told me you were at a late client meeting a week ago, because I knew you would react emotionally. No, I said, you lied because you knew I would ask why my property was being discussed without me. Cassandra lifted her chin. Adrian was trying to reduce your stress. I looked at her. In my first life, Cassandra's beauty had intimidated me. She had soft blonde waves, clear skin, wide grey eyes, and a talent for turning every room into a jury. She did not raise her voice. She never needed to. She spoke gently, and people rushed to protect her from the consequences of what she said. Tonight she looked the same, but I was not the same woman looking back. Are you pregnant? I asked. The room froze. Cassandra blinked. I just said I was. How far along? Adrian's face changed. That is not your business. I laughed once. It came out dry and ugly. My husband brings his pregnant mistress to my dinner table, asks me to put my house into his family trust, and you think the timeline is not my business. Don't call her that. Adrian snapped. There it was again. Not don't humiliate my wife. Don't call my mistress what she is. Cassandra's eyes filled with tears instantly. I didn't want it to happen this way. No, I said, you wanted it to happen after I signed. Her mouth parted. I reached for the folder in front of me and opened it. The top page was a legal authorization form giving Adrian broad authority to manage Hawthorne Villa during my medical treatment. Below, it was a draft amendment transferring the villa into the Vale Family Residential Trust. The language was careful, respectable, clean. Predators loved clean language. I flipped to the signature page. My name was already printed below the line, Elena Hartvale. I picked up the pen Adrian had slid toward me. His shoulders relaxed. That almost made me smile again. Even after everything, he still thought my obedience was muscle memory. I drew one straight line through the blank signature space, then I wrote 2 words across the page, not authorized. Margaret gasped as if I had stabbed someone. Adrian stood so fast his chair scraped backward. Do you understand what you're doing? He demanded. Finally, I said. Cassandra wiped under her eye with one delicate finger. There were no tears yet. She had always been efficient, but not miraculous. Elena, she whispered, I know you're hurt, but the baby didn't do anything to you. In my last life, that sentence had worked. The baby, the future, the innocent life. I had let that imagined baby become a shield for everyone else's greed this time. I said, then the baby can grow up in a house its parents own. Robert coughed into his napkin. Marlene's eyes widened. Adrian looked like he wanted to drag me from the room by my arm, but the recording phone sat between us like a small red witness. Margaret turned on him instead. Say something. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw him making a new plan. That was what Adrian did best. He adapted. He did not panic if he could still manipulate the room, so he softened his voice. Elena, you're scared. I understand. The diagnosis has made everything feel unstable, but Hawthorne is too much responsibility right now. The insurance, the staff, the maintenance, the taxes. You need to focus on treatment. The taxes are paid from my separate account, I said. The staff are paid by me. The insurance is paid by me. The maintenance is paid by me. The only person using Hawthorne without paying for it is your family. His uncle looked offended. His cousin looked embarrassed. Margaret looked murderous. Adrian's lips pressed together. I continued, and as of tonight, that ends. What does that mean? Margaret asked. It means no more family events here, no more cousins staying for weeks, no more charity committees using my rooms for free, no more storage in the East Garage, no more wine from my cellar for your friends. Margaret stood. You ungrateful little. Sit down, mother, Adrian said for once. She listened. He was staring at me too carefully now. He knew me well enough to recognize when I was not bluffing, but not well enough to understand why. That was my advantage. He had known my habits. He had never known my breaking point. Everyone should leave, I said. Cassandra put both hands over her stomach. Adrian, I don't feel well. Of course, he moved toward her automatically. That small movement cut through me more sharply than I expected. I hated that it still hurt. I hated that a part of me remembered his hand at my back on our wedding day, steadying me when my heel caught in the garden grass. I hated that my body still recognized him as someone who had once made me feel safe. But pain was not a command, it was information. Adrian helped Cassandra stand. We'll continue this conversation privately. No, I said, we won't. He looked back at me. I held his gaze. Any further discussion about Hawthorne Villa goes through my attorney. A silence dropped so hard even the sea outside seemed to pause. Margaret laughed. Attorney, with what money? You think treatment will be cheap? I know exactly what treatment costs, because in my last life, I had sold my jewelry first, then my car, then the small commercial studio I owned before marriage, then my pride. I had died with nothing liquid, nothing signed safely, and nothing protected except a house I had no strength left to defend. Not again. Adrian's voice lowered. Elena, be careful. There it was, the threat beneath the concern. I picked up my phone and stopped the recording. They left in clusters. Margaret swept out first, furious enough to forget her pearl wrap on the chair. Robert followed, muttering about illness changing people. Marlene paused like she wanted to say something to me, then saw Adrian watching and hurried away. Cassandra was the last to reach the foyer. She turned back for a moment. The softness left her face. You think keeping a house will make him love you? She asked quietly. I walked toward her. Adrian was outside speaking to his mother, his back to us. No, I said, I think selling it will make all of you show me exactly who you are. Her expression flickered. Good, let her carry that sentence into the night. After the door closed, Hawthorne Villa became silent. I stood in the foyer under the portrait of my grandmother, Beatrice Hart, who had bought this house in 1978 after divorcing a man who told her she would come crawling back within 6 months. She never did. She filled the villa with books, music, wild roses, and women who needed somewhere to breathe. When she left it to me, she wrote a letter. A house is not love, Elena, but it can become the place where you remember what love is not. I had forgotten. I would not forget again. My hands began to shake once I was alone. Not from fear exactly, from the violence of being alive with knowledge no one else had. I walked into the study and locked the door. Then I opened my laptop. There were messages from Adrian already. Adrian, we need to talk when you've calmed down. Adrian, do not involve lawyers. Adrian, you embarrassed me tonight. Adrian, Cassandra is crying. I hope you're proud of yourself. I took screenshots. Then I opened our joint banking portal. In the last life, I noticed too late that Adrian had been moving small amounts out for months, consultancy fees, medical coordination expenses, reimbursements to his mother, payments to a company. I later learned Cassandra had registered under her sister's name this time. I saw the pattern immediately. 8,000 here, 12,000 there, 45,000 labeled property restructuring retainer. My money had been funding the theft of my house. I downloaded everything. At 11:42 p.m., I called Simon Reed. He had handled a boundary dispute for my grandmother years ago and sent flowers when she died. I had almost called him in my last life, but Adrian convinced me lawyers would make things hostile. Things were already hostile. I had simply been unarmed. Simon answered on the 5th ring, voice rough with sleep. Elena, I'm sorry it's late, I said. Are you all right? No, that was the first honest answer I had given anyone in years. His tone changed. Tell me what happened. My husband tried to make me sign a legal authorization transferring control of Hawthorne Villa tonight. His mistress is pregnant. His family witnessed it. I recorded part of the conversation. Silence. Then Simon said, do not sign anything. I didn't. Good. I need 3 things. I said, I need my medical capacity documented. I need my separate property protected, and I need to sell Hawthorne Villa as fast as legally possible. Another silence. This one was heavier. Elena, he said carefully, selling Hawthorne is a major decision. Are you sure? I looked up at my grandmother's portrait. In my last life, I had tried to keep the house because I thought losing it meant losing the last proof that I had been loved, but a house could become a trap if everyone around you wanted to bury you inside it. I'm sure, I said. And Simon, yes, I don't want a polite buyer. He understood more than I expected. There are cash buyers who specialize in disputed luxury property, he said slowly. Some are aggressive, good, some have reputations, even better. Elena. I closed my eyes and saw Cassandra walking through my bedroom in white. I saw Adrian taking my hand in the hospital and pressing a pen into it. I saw Margaret telling a nurse, she has no close family, we are all she has. Then I opened my eyes. Last time, I was too kind, I said. Simon did not ask what I meant by last time. Maybe good lawyers knew when not to interrupt a confession. I'll be at my office by 7, he said. Come in before your oncology appointment, bring every document you have. I will, after the call. I walked through Hawthorne Villa room by room. The library smelled like lemon oil and paper. The blue guest room still had Cassandra's favorite throw folded over the chair from the weeks she had stayed here pretending to be wounded. The kitchen island held the flowers Adrian had brought me that morning. White lilies, funeral flowers. I carried them to the trash. Then I went upstairs to the bedroom I had once shared with my husband. His cuff links were still on the dresser. A navy tie hung over the back of a chair. Half his closet was empty because he had been sleeping near the office 3 nights a week near Cassandra. I took a suitcase from the hall closet and packed his remaining things not in. Anger would come later. Maybe this was inventory, this was action, this was a woman removing a man from a house before he could remove her from it. At 1:16 a.m., Adrian called. I let it ring at 1:18. He called again at 1:22. A message appeared. Adrian, don't do something you'll regret. I typed back one sentence. I already did when I trusted you. Then I blocked him for the night. I slept in my grandmother's old room, not the master bedroom. For the first time since my diagnosis, I did not dream of dying. I dreamed of a locked gate, and beyond it, strangers in black suits walking up the driveway of Hawthorne Villa with papers no one in the Vale family could tear up. Simon Reed looked older than I remembered, or maybe, in my first life, I had only met him when my world was already blurred by medication and fear. Now his sharp grey suit, tired eyes, and careful silence felt almost comforting. He did not waste time with pity. That was why I trusted him. He read the authorization form first, then the trust amendment, then the account statements I had printed at dawn while the villa still smelled faintly of lilies in the trash. By the time he reached Adrian's messages, the muscle in his jaw was moving. This is not concern, he said. No, this is groundwork. Yes, he looked at me over the top of the papers. Has Adrian ever suggested you are mentally impaired? Last night, in front of his family, his mother did too. Any witnesses outside the family? Cassandra, Simon made a sound that was almost a laugh and not at all amused. The mistress is not helpful. She might be, I said, if she thinks she's already one. That made him pause. I placed my phone on his desk and opened the recording. My own voice filled the office first. Calm and colder than I felt. I was diagnosed with stage 2 lymphoma. Not dementia. Then Margaret, stage 2 can become stage 4. Then Adrian, Hawthorne is too much responsibility right now. Then Cassandra, the baby didn't do anything to you. Simon listened without moving. When the recording ended, he sat back. Elena, we need to move quickly. If Adrian has already spoken to a doctor willing to frame your diagnosis as incapacity, he may try an emergency petition. He did it before, I said. The words escaped before I could stop them. Simon stilled. I looked down at my hands. There was no clean way to explain reincarnation to a lawyer before breakfast, and I did not need him to believe in it. I only needed him to believe in preparation. In another version of my life, I said carefully, I waited too long. I trusted him too long. I know where this goes if I don't act. Simon studied me for a few seconds, then he nodded once. Then we make sure this version is documented. By 9, I was at Dr. Helen Cross's office. She had been my oncologist in the last life too. I remembered her crying quietly after Adrian left my hospital room. I remembered her hand over mine when I whispered that I did not want him making decisions for me anymore. I remembered dying before she could help me fix it. This time, she looked at my chart with professional focus. Your treatment plan is aggressive but reasonable, she said. You're young, your response markers are good. I don't want you thinking of this as a death sentence. I don't, I said. That surprised both of us. She looked up. I need a cognitive and capacity assessment documented. I continued. Today, if possible. Her expression changed. Has someone challenged your decision making? My husband and his family are preparing to. Dr. Cross leaned back slowly. Doctors hear many things. They learn not to show shock too easily, but anger moved through her face before she hid it. I can refer you for a same-day evaluation, she said. And I can write a medical note confirming that your diagnosis does not impair your cognitive function. Thank you, Elena, she said gently. Is there anything else I should know? I almost said no. Then I thought of my last life, of nurses avoiding my eyes while Adrian spoke over me. I thought of Cassandra at the door. I thought of Margaret telling hospital staff I got confused when stressed. Yes, I said, no medical information goes to my husband unless I provide written consent from today forward. Dr. Cross's face hardened in approval. Done. There are moments when freedom does not look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like a doctor typing a note into a system. Sometimes it sounds like keys clicking. Sometimes it feels like taking back one locked door inside your own life. After the appointment, I went to a psychiatric evaluator Simon recommended. I answered questions about dates, finances, risks, property, medical treatment, pressure, and whether I understood the consequences of selling a major asset. Do you feel coerced? The evaluator asked. No, I said. I felt coerced when my husband tried to make me transfer it to his family trust. Selling it is my decision. Why sell instead of litigate? Because I don't want to spend treatment fighting over rooms full of ghosts. She looked at me for a long second and wrote something down. By noon, Simon had what he needed. By 1, he introduced me to Marissa Keene. Marissa was a luxury real estate broker with silver hair cut blunt at her chin and the energy of a woman who had survived 3 market crashes and 2 divorces. She looked at the photos of Hawthorne Villa and whistled softly. This would normally take months to position properly, she said. Private showings, international buyers, heritage property. People, emotional nonsense. I don't have months. So Mr. Reed said, I need cash, clean closing, no financing games, no buyer who will back down if my husband makes noise. Marissa tapped one red fingernail against the folder. That narrows the list. Good, it also lowers the price, I know. And raises the risk of an unpleasant buyer. I looked at her. Define unpleasant. She glanced at Simon. Simon said. Elena asked for direct options. Marissa sighed. Moretti Holdings has tried to buy Hawthorne twice in the last decade. Your grandmother refused them both times. I knew the name. Everyone in Harbour Ridge knew the name. The Moretti family-owned restaurants, shipping warehouses, private security firms, construction companies, and half the waterfront through layers of corporations polite people pretended not to understand. Newspapers had called them organized crime for 30 years. Prosecutors had called them worse. No one had ever made much stick, my grandmother once said. Lucia Moretti was what happened when men built a dirty empire and a woman with a cleaner brain inherited it. What did they want with Hawthorne? I asked. Privacy, Marissa said. Location, the cliff road, the old boathouse, maybe a private club, maybe a fortress. With the Morettis, you rarely know until it's done. Do they honor contracts? Marissa's eyebrows lifted. Religiously. Do they scare Adrian Vale? Simon answered this time. Yes, something inside me settled, not joy, not revenge yet. Recognition. In my last life, I had lost because I kept bringing manners to a knife fight. I had believed the law would protect me automatically because I had done nothing wrong. But the law does not move unless someone makes it move. Contracts are only paper until people with power enforce them. Adrian had counted on my softness, he had counted on my loneliness, he had counted on the fact that every respectable buyer in town would run from a disputed property once a husband with a sad story began whispering about his sick wife, so I would sell to someone who did not run from whispers. Call them, I said. Marissa did not move. You should think carefully. Moretti Holdings will not care that you have memories attached to the house, neither did my husband. That ended the debate at 3:40 p.m. We drove to a building near the old harbor where Moretti Holdings occupied the top 2 floors behind smoked glass and immaculate security. The receptionist knew Marissa by name. Nobody asked me to wait long. Lucia Moretti received us in an office with no visible family photos, no sentimental clutter, and a view of the sea that looked colder from that height. She was in her late 50s, maybe early 60s, with iron gray hair pulled back at the nape of her neck. She wore a black suit without jewelry except a watch that looked older than I was and probably worth more than Adrian's car. Her eyes moved over me once, not rudely, completely. Elena Hart, she said, Beatrice's granddaughter. You knew my grandmother. Everyone worth knowing knew Beatrice Hart. I did not expect the ache that moved through my chest. Lucia gestured to the chair in front of her desk. Sit. I sat. Marissa began the professional explanation. Private sale, accelerated closing, potential domestic dispute. Clean title currently held solely by me, medical documentation available, legal representation present. Lucia listened without interruption, then she looked at me. Why sell? I could have said treatment. Costs. It was true, I could have said divorce, also true, but Lucia Moretti did not look like a woman who paid for half-truths. Because my husband wants the house, I said. He plans to take it while I am ill. I would rather sell it to someone he fears than watch him sleep in my grandmother's bed with another woman. Marissa stared at her notes. Simon looked at the window. Lucia's mouth did not smile, but something in her eyes approved. Honest, she said. Rare. I need speed. Speed costs money. I know. You need protection from interference. Yes, you understand my family name will bring attention. My husband already brought his pregnant mistress to my dining table. Attention is no longer my greatest concern. This time, Lucia did smile. It was small and dangerous. People come to us when polite society has already failed them, she said. I am not asking you to break the law. No, you're asking me to be less afraid of your husband than everyone else is. Yes, that is easy. She opened the file Marissa had brought. Hawthorne is worth more than I will offer you. I know, I can close in 10 business days. Too slow. 7, if your lawyer is competent, Simon said. He is. 5, if you accept escrow terms today, allow immediate inspection access, and provide vacancy at closing. I can provide vacancy. Lucia studied me again. And your husband, he does not live there anymore. Does he know that? He will. A silence, then Lucia leaned back. I will make you an offer. It will be below market. It will be cash. It will include a penalty if we fail to close without cause. It will include my right to secure the exterior upon execution of contract, not possession, but security assessment. It will include confidentiality until recording. It will not include sympathy. I don't need sympathy. No, she said, I can see that. The offer came 20 minutes later. It was less than Hawthorne deserved. It was more than enough to fund my treatment, my divorce, and the first years of a life nobody else could invoice. I signed the letter of intent with a hand that did not shake when I finished. Lucia said, does he love the house? My husband? Yes, I thought of Adrian standing on the terrace at parties, letting people assume Hawthorne came from his family. I thought of him telling clients, our place on the ridge is old money, but Elena keeps it livable. I thought of Cassandra's eyes moving over the master bedroom like she was mentally measuring curtains. He loves what it makes people think of him, I said. That is often more expensive to lose. On the way back to Simon's office, my phone buzzed with messages from numbers I had not blocked. Margaret, you have humiliated this family enough. Call Adrian. Robert Vale, your illness does not excuse cruelty. Marlene, are you okay? I mean really okay. Cassandra, I never wanted to take anything from you. Please don't punish the baby. Adrian used email. Subject, last night. Elena, I am trying to give you space, but your behavior is alarming. You are isolating yourself, involving outside parties, and refusing to discuss decisions that affect our family. Cassandra is under medical stress because of what happened. My mother is devastated. I am worried about you, but I will not allow you to destroy everything we built because you are scared. Come home emotionally, if not physically. We can still handle this privately. Adrian, I read it twice, not because it moved me, because every sentence was useful. Isolating yourself, alarming, worried about you. Destroy everything we built. He was laying stones in a path that led to one place. Court. I forwarded the email to Simon, then I replied, Adrian, I will communicate about legal and property matters through counsel. Elena, no emotion, no explanation, no door left open. That evening, I returned to Hawthorne with a locksmith. Adrian arrived 10 minutes after the first lock was changed. His car came too fast up the drive, tires biting gravel. He stepped out in the same navy coat he wore when he wanted to look wounded but dignified. What the hell are you doing? He demanded. The locksmith froze. I stood on the front steps with my arms folded, changing the locks. This is my home. No, it is a house where you have been allowed to live. His face flushed. My clothes are inside, packed, in the garage. You packed my things. Yes. He came closer. Elena, you need to stop, right now. I know you're angry about Cassandra, but this vindictive spiral is not you. There it was again, not my pain, not his betrayal. My reaction, I looked at him and wondered how many women had been talked back into cages by that exact tone. You brought your pregnant mistress to my dinner table, I said. He lowered his voice. Cassandra is not a mistress. What is she? His mouth tightened. Someone I love. I thought it would break something open in me. It did not. Maybe that part had broken in the hospice room. Thank you, I said. He blinked, for saying it clearly. Elena, no, say the rest clearly too. You want a divorce, but you want me to transfer my house first. You want Cassandra protected, but you want me to keep paying the bills. You want me declared too fragile to manage property, but stable enough to make the decision that benefits you. His eyes narrowed. Who is advising you? My memory. He looked unsettled for the first time. Good. Move your car, I said. The locksmith needs access to the side gate. He stepped closer. Listen to me. If you force this into court, it will get ugly. Your diagnosis will be discussed. Your emotional state will be discussed. Every reckless thing you do right now will matter. I looked past him toward the road. A black SUV had turned through the gate. Then another. Adrian followed my gaze. The vehicles stopped behind his car. 2 men stepped out first, both in dark suits. A woman in a beige coat followed with a tablet in one hand. Marissa had told me Moretti Holdings would send a security assessment team before sunset. She had not mentioned they would look like the closing scene of Adrian's nightmares. The woman approached me and handed over a card. Nora Voss, Property Counsel for Moretti Holdings, she said. We're here for the exterior assessment authorized by today's agreement. Adrian went very still. Moretti, he said. Nora looked at him with polite disinterest. And you are, I answered for him, an occupant whose belongings are being removed. Adrian turned to me for the first time since I had known him. He looked genuinely afraid not of losing me, of losing the house. Elena, he said quietly, what did you do? I held his gaze. I stopped waiting to die. Adrian tried to recover quickly. He had always believed composure could pass for innocence if his suit was expensive enough. This is a misunderstanding, he told Nora Voss. I am Elena's husband. Nora looked at my bare left hand, then at the boxes stacked neatly inside the garage. How unfortunate for her, she said. The locksmith coughed. I almost laughed. Adrian did not. His gaze snapped back to me. You cannot sell Hawthorne. I can. No, you cannot, not without discussing it with me. I did discuss it with you, I said. For 7 years, every time I paid for repairs you called unnecessary and parties you called important, every time your mother hosted people here without asking me, every time you introduced it as our villa to clients who thought your family owned it. His eyes flicked toward Nora. He hated being exposed in front of strangers. That used to make me careful. Now it made me precise. You never corrected them, I said, because we were married. Marriage did not put your name on the deed. His face hardened. Nora glanced at her tablet. MS. Hart, our team will remain outside unless invited in. We need to inspect gates, exterior cameras, cliff access, service entrances, and boundary fencing. Go ahead. Adrian stepped into her path. No one inspects anything until I speak to my attorney. Nora stopped. The two men behind her did not move, but the air changed. Nora's voice stayed mild. Mr. Vale, you are welcome to speak to any attorney you like. You are not welcome to obstruct access granted under a signed purchase agreement. This is marital property. No, Simon said from behind me. I turned. I had not heard his car arrive. He walked up the drive carrying a leather folder, his expression calm enough to be cruel. Hawthorne Villa is separate inherited property, never commingled in title, never refinanced jointly, and maintained through MS. Hart's separate account. You know that, Adrian. I assume that's why you tried to get her to transfer it before filing anything. Adrian's eyes went flat. Simon, I should have known. Yes, Simon said, you should have. The words landed like a door closing. Adrian looked between us, measuring. He could shout at me, he could threaten me, he could tell Margaret I had lost my mind, but Simon Reed and Moretti Holdings were not frightened relatives at a dinner table. They were witnesses. With files he stepped back not far, just enough. This isn't over, he said. No, I agreed, but it is documented. For the next hour, Adrian stood by his car while Nora's team walked the perimeter of Hawthorne Villa. They photographed the gates, the boathouse, the old stone wall by the cliff, the service road behind the kitchen garden. They noted every camera and every lock. They did not raise their voices. They did not threaten anyone. They did not need to. At one point, Cassandra called. Adrian answered with his back turned, but the wind carried pieces of his voice. No, don't come here, because she's doing something insane. No, I said don't come. Then, after a pause, lower, Moretti. I watched his shoulders tighten as Cassandra began shouting loudly enough for me to hear her through the phone. So much for fragile. That night, I did not sleep at Hawthorne. I checked into a hotel under my maiden name, sent the location only to Simon, and turned off shared location permanently. The next morning, Adrian filed for divorce, not because he wanted freedom, because he wanted leverage. His petition painted a portrait of a frightened husband trying to protect a sick, erratic wife from predatory outsiders. He requested temporary control over major marital decisions, access to my medical information, and an injunction preventing the sale of Hawthorne Villa. He also requested exclusive use of the property for family stability. Cassandra's name did not appear. Her shadow was on every page. Simon read the petition aloud in his office. When he finished, he removed his glasses, his moving faster than expected. No, I said, exactly as expected. In my last life, the petition came after I collapsed during treatment and missed 2 mortgage insurance calls. Adrian used the lapse to argue I could not manage obligations. He brought Margaret and Cassandra as witnesses. Cassandra cried about how hard it was to watch me deteriorate. The judge granted temporary authority. Temporary became permanent because I became too sick to fight. This time, the petition arrived before he knew the sale contract had teeth. Can he stop it? I asked. He can try. The hearing is in 3 days, but we have your capacity evaluation, medical note, recording, separate property documentation, and signed purchase agreement. Moretti's counsel will also appear. Good, Simon hesitated. Elena, there is another issue. I waited. Adrian's attorney sent a letter alleging undue influence by Moretti Holdings. I smiled without humor, of course. He will argue you are being manipulated by a buyer with a criminal reputation. Am I? No, then we prove it. Reputation can still influence a judge, so can a husband bringing his pregnant mistress to dinner to pressure his cancer patient wife into signing over a house? Simon looked at me, then he said, yes, it can. By the second day, the story had begun spreading in Harbour Ridge. Scandal traveled faster than weather. My phone filled with messages disguised as concern. Are you really selling Hawthorne? Is Adrian okay? I heard Cassandra is pregnant. This must be so complicated. Maybe don't make big decisions while undergoing treatment. My favorite came from a woman who had attended 3 fundraisers at my house without ever remembering my name. Marriage is hard. Don't let pride destroy a home. I typed back nothing. Silence became one of my cleanest weapons. Then came Friday, the day Adrian planned to move Cassandra into Hawthorne. He had sent a message through his attorney claiming he needed to collect personal items. Simon agreed to supervised access for 1 hour. Adrian arrived with a moving truck. Margaret arrived behind him in a cream Mercedes. Cassandra arrived in a white dress and sunglasses, carrying a small box labeled nursery books. Subtlety had never been her burden. I stood inside the front hall with Simon, Nora Voss, and 2 licensed private security officers hired by Moretti Holdings for the inspection period. Everything was legal, everything was documented. Adrian stepped through the door and stopped. The family portraits had been removed from the hallway, not my grandmother's, the Vale portraits, their framed vacation photos, golf tournament plaques, Margaret's charity luncheon certificates, Adrian's fake old money life, all packed, all labeled, all waiting in boxes by the east wall. Margaret made a sound like she had been slapped. What have you done? I separated your belongings from my house, I said. Cassandra looked around. Lips parted. I saw her notice the empty console table, the missing silver mirror, the absence of the blue and white porcelain vase she had once praised too often. It was already in storage, my storage, not hers. Adrian's voice was tight. We are here for my things. Your things are in the garage. The nursery furniture was delivered yesterday. I refused delivery. Cassandra snapped. You what? There she was again, the real woman beneath the gauze. I turned to her. I refused delivery. My name was on that order. My address was on it. Her face flushed. You had no right. I looked at her stomach. To refuse furniture for your child in my bedroom. I had every right. Margaret surged forward. This house belongs to my son as much as it belongs to you. Nora spoke before I could. No, Mrs. Vale, it does not. Margaret looked at her. Who are you? Counsel for the purchaser. The purchaser, Cassandra whispered. Adrian's hand closed around her arm. Too late. Nora handed Margaret a copy of the notice. Hawthorne Villa is under contract for sale to Moretti Holdings. Upon closing, any unauthorized occupants will be removed through lawful process. Today's access is limited to retrieval of identified personal belongings. Margaret read the first line, then the second. Her face lost color. You sold it, she said. I did not answer. She turned to Adrian. Tell me she didn't sell it. Adrian said nothing. Cassandra pulled the paper from Margaret's hand and scanned it. The box labeled nursery books slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. For 1 shining second, nobody moved. That was the moment I had come back for, not because it healed the hospice room, nothing could, but because in my last life, I had watched them walk through my house while I was too weak to stand. This time, they stood in my doorway and understood that wanting something did not make it theirs. Adrian turned to me slowly. Cancel it. No, Elena, no. His eyes darkened. You are making a mistake you cannot undo. That is the point. Cassandra's voice shook. Where are we supposed to live? I looked at her. The question was so absurd I almost did not understand it. Somewhere you pay for. Margaret rounded on me. You cruel little bitch. Simon stepped forward. Mrs. Vale, no, she spat. I am done being polite. We welcomed you into this family. We treated you like a daughter. I laughed. It startled everyone, including me. A daughter, I said. You charged your birthday cruise to my card. You asked me to pay Robert's tax penalty because it would embarrass the family. You told Adrian I was too plain to stand beside him when we were engaged. You used my house, my staff, my money, and my illness. If that is how you treat a daughter, I pity your sons. Margaret raised her hand. Adrian caught her wrist, not to protect me, to protect their case. That almost made me laugh again. Nora's security officer shifted 1 step closer. Margaret lowered her hand. Cassandra bent to pick up the fallen books. Her sunglasses slipped down her nose, and for the first time I saw panic. Without performance, Adrian looked at the security officer. then at Nora, then Simon, then me. He understood the scene was unwinnable. Collect the boxes, he said to the movers. No, Nora said. Everyone turned. She tapped the list on her tablet. The movers may collect Mr. Vale's pre-identified belongings from the garage. No one else enters the house or removes any item not listed. This is insane, Adrian said. This is contractual. His mouth twisted. In the end, he left with 6 boxes, 2 garment bags, golf clubs he had bought with my card, and none of the life he had tried to steal. Cassandra cried in the driveway. This time, no one comforted her except Adrian, and even he looked like he resented the obligation as their cars disappeared down the cliff road. Simon stood beside me in the open doorway. How do you feel? He asked. I looked at the empty foyer. Not free yet, I said, but closer. That evening, Adrian made his public move. He attended the Harbor Ridge Children's Trust charity gala with Cassandra on his arm. I had planned that gala. I had secured the donor list, designed the seating plan, and paid the deposit for the venue before my diagnosis. Adrian walked in with the mistress he once told me was just a wounded friend. People stared. He let them. Then he gave an interview to the local society columnist near the champagne table. I saw the clip before midnight. Adrian looked exhausted and noble. Elena is going through a difficult medical crisis, he said. I love my wife. I want her safe. But right now, she is making choices under pressure from people who do not have her best interests at heart. My priority is protecting her from exploitation. Cassandra stood beside him with wet eyes and one hand on her stomach. I watched the video once, then I sent Simon 3 words. Release the recording. He called immediately. Are you sure? Yes. The whole thing? No. The relevant parts. Their pressure. The trust documents. Cassandra mentioning the baby. Adrian saying I wasn't strong enough to manage anything. Once this is public, it becomes ugly. Simon, I said, it became ugly when they divided my house over dinner while discussing how sick I might become. He exhaled. All right. The next morning, the clip appeared through a clean legal statement. No drama, no insults. Just evidence. By noon, Harbor Ridge had heard Adrian's mother say my condition could become stage 4. By 1, they had heard Cassandra say the baby did nothing to me while sitting beside my husband. By 2, they had heard me say, then the baby can grow up in a house its parents own. That line traveled fastest. By evening, Adrian was no longer a tragic husband. He was a man who had brought his pregnant mistress to his sick wife's dinner table and asked for her villa. At 7:03 p.m., he called from an unknown number. I answered because Simon had told me sometimes rage was useful when recorded. How could you? Adrian said. I turned on call recording. How could I what? Release private family pain for strangers to chew on. You mean evidence? You cut it to make me look cruel. You were cruel before I cut anything. Cassandra's voice sounded in the background. Tell her to take it down. I smiled. Hello, Cassandra. A rustle, then silence. Adrian lowered his voice. You have no idea what you've done. I know exactly what I've done. You sold your grandmother's house to the Morettis. Yes, you destroyed our reputation. No, I stopped protecting it. You think they'll care about you once they have the property. No, that seemed to confuse him. I continued. I am not selling the villa because I think the Morettis are kind. I am selling it because the contract is clear and they are not afraid of you. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he spoke in the voice from the hospital room in my last life, soft, intimate, rotten. Elena, you are sick. You are alone. At the end of this, when the anger fades and treatment gets hard, who do you think will be there? In my old life, that question would have destroyed me tonight. I looked around my hotel room. There was tea on the desk, legal folders beside it, a treatment calendar on my laptop, a message from Dr. Cross confirming my next appointment, a text from Marlene asking if she could give a statement because she had seen more than she admitted. I was alone. I was also not surrounded by people waiting to inherit my weakness. I will, I said. He inhaled. What? I will be there. Then I ended the call. The hearing notice arrived the next morning. Adrian had filed an emergency petition alleging incapacity, undue influence, and reckless dissipation of marital assets. He wanted the court to stop the sale. He wanted my medical records opened. He wanted temporary authority over Hawthorne Villa. He wanted to repeat the ending. I looked at the scanned petition for a long time, then I forwarded it to Simon. My message was simple. Let's bury the old life properly. The courtroom smelled like old wood, paper, and other people's fear. I had been in court only once before, in my first life. Though I barely remembered it clearly, Adrian had brought me there in a wheelchair. Margaret had tucked a blanket around my knees for the judge to see. Cassandra had sat 2 rows back, hands folded, eyes red. Adrian's attorney argued that my illness had made me vulnerable. Margaret testified that I forgot things. Cassandra testified that I cried often. Adrian testified that he loved me. The court granted him temporary authority, and I was too tired to understand that a temporary order can steal the rest of your life if you are dying fast enough. This time, I walked in on my own feet. No blanket, no husband pushing my chair, no trembling hand hidden under hospital cotton. I wore a black suit I had bought that morning because all my old formal clothes felt like costumes from a marriage I no longer belonged to. Adrian sat at the opposite table with his attorney. Margaret sat behind him, rigid in pearls. Cassandra sat beside her in a cream dress, one hand posed on her stomach as if photographers might appear. No photographers were allowed. Still, she performed. Simon sat to my right. Nora Voss sat behind us for Moretti Holdings, her expression unreadable. The judge, a woman named Patricia Hale, read the filings with the weary focus of someone who had seen too many families call greed concern. Adrian's attorney stood first. He was smooth, silver-haired, and expensive. I recognized the type from charity boards, men who could say ugly things in beautiful grammar. Your Honor, he began, this matter concerns the protection of a medically vulnerable spouse who, within days of a serious cancer diagnosis, abruptly attempted to sell a major residential asset to a buyer with a notorious reputation and no personal connection to her welfare. He glanced at me with practiced sympathy. Mr. Vale is not seeking to punish his wife. He is seeking time for medical clarity, time for proper valuation, time to ensure Mrs. Vale is not being exploited during a period of emotional instability. Mrs. Vale, the name landed like dust. He continued, we will show that Mrs. Vale has isolated herself, cut off communication, changed locks on the marital residence, and entered into an accelerated below-market sale under circumstances that should alarm this court. Adrian lowered his eyes at the perfect moment. Cassandra sniffed softly behind him. The performance was good. It might have worked in my last life because I had been too ashamed to show anyone the machinery beneath it. This time, Simon stood. Your Honor, Ms. Hart is not medically incapacitated, she is not cognitively impaired, she is not isolated, she is represented by counsel, under active medical care, and fully capable of making decisions about her separate inherited property. He placed the first exhibit on the screen, the deed, my grandmother's name, then mine. No, Adrian, Mr. Vale's petition asks this court to protect Ms. Hart from exploitation. The evidence will show that the only attempted exploitation came from Mr. Vale, his mother, and his pregnant girlfriend, who pressured Ms. Hart at a family dinner to transfer her separate property into the Vale family trust before Mr. Vale filed for divorce. The courtroom shifted, not loudly but enough. Adrian's attorney objected to the word girlfriend. The judge looked at Simon. Counsel. Simon nodded. Mr. Vale's romantic partner. Your Honor, proceed. Next came the medical letter. Dr. Helen Cross had written it with clinical precision. My diagnosis did not impair cognition. I had attended appointments, understood treatment options, asked appropriate questions, and revoked spousal access to medical information in writing. Then came the capacity evaluation. The evaluator's conclusion was almost boring. That made it powerful. I was oriented, rational, informed, not delusional, not coerced, aware of financial consequences. Then Simon played the dinner recording. Not all of it. Enough. Margaret's voice filled the courtroom. Elena, don't be selfish. Hawthorne Villa should go into the Vale Family Trust before your condition gets worse. Then Adrian, sign it tonight, and we can all stop pretending you're strong enough to manage anything. Cassandra shifted behind him. The judge looked up. Simon paused the recording. Your Honor, this was not a husband asking for time. This was a husband presenting prepared legal documents at a family dinner beside his pregnant romantic partner and asking his wife to surrender control of inherited property. Adrian's attorney rose. The recording lacks context. Simon turned a page. We are happy to provide the transcript. The judge said, I will review it. Then came the authorization form, the trust amendment, the draft signature page with my printed name, the bank statements showing payments from my separate account for Hawthorne's expenses, the transfers from our joint account to Adrian's property restructuring retainer, then the messages. Adrian, do not involve lawyers. Adrian, you embarrassed me tonight. Adrian, Cassandra is crying. I hope you're proud of yourself. Adrian, your diagnosis will be discussed, your emotional state will be discussed. The courtroom grew very quiet. Adrian's face had gone pale under his careful tan. His attorney pivoted. Your Honor, even if mistakes were made in a difficult family conversation, the buyer remains deeply concerning. Nora Voss stood then. Your Honor, Moretti Holdings objects to insinuations unsupported by any evidence. Relevant to this transaction, Judge Hale looked at her. Briefly, Nora stepped forward with a folder. Moretti Holdings entered into a lawful purchase agreement with MS Hart through licensed broker Marissa Keene and counsel Simon Reed. The sale includes standard disclosures, title review, escrow procedures, and a closing timeline agreed upon by a competent seller. The petitioner's dislike of my client's reputation is not a legal basis to freeze a valid sale, Adrian's attorney said. Your client's reputation is not imaginary. Nora smiled faintly. Neither is Mr. Vale's adultery. But only one of those things is relevant to whether MS Hart may sell her own property. A sound moved through the room before the judge silenced it with a look. I kept my face still inside. Something bright and sharp unfolded, not because Nora had saved me, because the room had finally heard the truth without perfume on it. Adrian was called to testify. He walked to the stand with the stiff dignity of a man who still believed dignity could be worn like a coat. His attorney asked gentle questions first. Was he concerned for me? Deeply. Had my behavior changed after diagnosis? Yes. She became suspicious, angry, secretive. Had he intended to steal my property? Absolutely not. Why prepare the trust documents? To simplify management during treatment. Hawthorne is expensive and complex. I was trying to reduce her burden. Did he love me? He paused, then he said, yes, in my last life. That word had been enough to make me doubt every wound. This time, it sounded like a forged signature. Simon stood for cross-examination. Mr. Vale, when did your romantic relationship with Cassandra Wren begin? Adrian's attorney objected. Judge Hale allowed limited questioning. Adrian adjusted his cuff. Our relationship became romantic after my marriage had already broken down. Simon placed a document on the screen, a hotel receipt 6 months before my diagnosis, paid from Adrian's private card, 2 guests room service for 2, Cassandra's name on the spa booking. Was your marriage broken down in March? Simon asked. Adrian's jaw tightened. We were struggling. Did you inform MS Hart? No. Did you continue to use Hawthorne Villa for client events after beginning this relationship? That has nothing to do with. Answer: yes. Did you allow clients to believe Hawthorne was connected to your family wealth? I don't control what clients assume. Did you correct them? No. Simon clicked again. A text appeared. Adrian to Cassandra. Once Elena signs the trust papers, we can stop sneaking around. Mom says the nursery should be upstairs, not in the guest house. Cassandra to Adrian. I want the blue room. It feels like mine already. I heard someone behind me inhale sharply. My own breath stayed steady. I had found those messages through a backup sync Adrian forgot existed on the old shared tablet in the kitchen drawer. In my first life, I found it too late, when my fingers shook too badly to send anything to a lawyer. This time, Simon had them printed, authenticated, and waiting. Adrian stared at the screen for a moment. He looked less like a villain than a man shocked to see his private self dragged into daylight. Good, that was where it belonged. Simon asked, was this before or after you presented MS Hart with documents transferring Hawthorne Villa into your family trust? Adrian said nothing. Mr. Vale. Before, he said. Simon clicked again. Adrian to Cassandra. If she fights, we use the medical angle. Dr. Bellows my mother. The courtroom changed. Even Judge Hale's expression sharpened. My heart kicked once hard against my ribs. There it was, the old road, the doctor, the angle, the theft wearing a white coat. Simon let the silence sit. Then he asked, what medical angle were you referring to? Adrian's attorney stood. Objection. Judge Hale's voice was cold. Overruled. The witness will answer. Adrian swallowed. I was upset. It was a private message. What did you mean? I meant Elena was under stress. No, Simon said. You wrote, Dr. Bellows my mother. Were you planning to obtain a statement suggesting MS Hart lacked capacity? No. Simon looked at the judge. Your Honor, we have subpoenaed communications with Dr. Bell for today's emergency matter. I submit that this message alone severely undermines the petitioner's claim of good faith. Adrian's attorney looked like he wanted the floor to open. Margaret did not move, but Cassandra did. She leaned forward, whispering harshly, Adrian. Everyone heard. The judge looked at her. Cassandra Wren. Simon asked. Cassandra froze. Adrian's attorney said, MS Wren is not a party. She submitted a declaration in support of the emergency petition. Simon said, we have the right to question her limited statements. Judge Hale allowed it. Cassandra walked to the stand as if she were approaching an altar. Her declaration had said I frightened her, that I had become cruel after diagnosis, that she feared for the stability of the unborn child because I had abruptly sold the family home. Simon began gently. MS Wren, you stated that Hawthorne Villa is the family home. Whose family? She blinked. The Vale family. Do you have any legal interest in the property? No. Have you ever paid taxes, insurance, or maintenance on it? No. Did Ms. Hart invite you to live there? She invited me to stay in the guest house once. When you were romantically involved with her husband. Cassandra's face flushed. It wasn't like that then. Simon clicked another text. Cassandra to her friend Lila. Living in the guest house is humiliating. Once I gets the papers done, I am moving into the main suite. Sick wife won't need ocean views much longer. Cassandra closed her eyes. There was no delicate way to recover from your own cruelty, Simon asked. Were you referring to Ms. Hart as sick wife? Cassandra whispered. I was angry. At what? Everything was complicated. Because you were pregnant by Ms. Hart's husband. Her hand tightened over her stomach. Yes. Because you wanted to move into her house. I wanted stability. No. Did you want to move into her house? Cassandra's lips trembled. Yes. Did you tell Mr. Vale you wanted the blue room? Yes. Did you know the blue room belonged to Ms. Hart's grandmother? No. That answer surprised me. Not because it mattered legally, because Cassandra had wanted everything without even knowing what she was taking. The room, the view, the name, the life. She did not want my history, she wanted the surface of it. Simon ended with one question. Ms. Wren, did Ms. Hart ever threaten you? Cassandra looked at me for a second. I thought she might lie, then she looked at the judge, at Nora, at Simon, at the messages on the screen, and understood that the room had turned. No, she said. Adrian looked at her as if she had betrayed him. I almost admired the irony. When I was called, I walked to the stand without looking at Adrian. Simon asked me why I sold Hawthorne. I told the truth. I inherited Hawthorne Villa from my grandmother before my marriage. During my marriage, I allowed my husband's family to use it freely. After my diagnosis, my husband brought his pregnant romantic partner to dinner and pressured me to transfer control of the villa into his family trust. I realized he was not trying to protect me. He was trying to secure the property before divorcing me. I chose to sell the villa to fund my treatment, protect my independence, and prevent further coercion. Did anyone from Moretti Holdings pressure you? No. Did you understand the sale price was below market? Yes. Why accept it? Because time and certainty had value. A higher offer from a timid buyer would not protect me from months of litigation and harassment. I wanted a buyer who would close, follow the contract, and not withdraw because my husband made noise. Do you regret selling Hawthorne? I looked at Adrian then. He looked back at me with something I had once mistaken for pain. No, I said. I regret not protecting myself sooner. Adrian's attorney tried to cross-examine me. He asked if I was angry. Yes. He asked if anger influenced my decision. Clarity did. He asked if I wanted to punish my husband. I wanted to stop rewarding him. He asked if I understood I could never recover the villa once the sale closed. I looked at him. In my last life, I almost said instead. I said, I understand perfectly. That is why I signed. Judge Hale denied Adrian's emergency petition that afternoon. She found no evidence of incapacity, no basis to freeze the sale, and serious questions about Adrian's good faith. The sale would proceed. Adrian did not look at me when the ruling came down. Margaret did. Her hatred was clean now. No concern wrapped around it. No family language. No trembling performance, just hatred. It almost felt respectful outside the courtroom. Reporters waited because society scandals are still scandals even when everyone pretends to be above them. Simon guided me toward a side exit. Adrian caught up before we reached the hall. Elena. I kept walking. Elena, stop. I stopped not because he asked, because I wanted him to say whatever ruined thing he had left. He came close enough for Simon to step slightly between us. Adrian noticed. Pain crossed his face. I would never have let you die alone, he said. The hallway went quiet inside me. There it was, the sentence from the old life, reversed. I saw the hospice ceiling, the plastic cup with a bent straw, the nurse who told me no one had come that morning. The phone beside my bed with no new messages from my husband because he was on the terrace at Hawthorne, posing for wedding photos with Cassandra under my grandmother's roses. I looked at him. You already did, I said. His face drained for one impossible second. I thought he understood. Not reincarnation, not the literal truth, the moral one. He had left me long before any version of my body stopped breathing. Elena, he whispered. I turned away. Behind me, Cassandra called his name. I did not look back that night. Adrian came to my hotel. I did not answer the room phone. Then he appeared in the lobby, soaked from rain, tie loosened, face stripped of performance. The receptionist called up, Ms. Hart, there is a Mr. Vale asking to see you. He says it's urgent. I almost said send him away, then I thought of endings. Some doors have to be closed while the person on the other side is still knocking. Tell him I'll come down. I said. I took the elevator in my slippers and cardigan, without makeup, without armor. Except the small recorder in my pocket, Adrian stood near the fireplace, looking like a man who had misplaced his own life. When he saw me, relief broke across his face that offended me more than his anger had. "Thank God," he said. "No," he stopped. "You don't get to thank God because I walked into a lobby." His mouth tightened. "I didn't know how else to reach you. My attorney." "I don't want to talk to your attorney. I want to talk to my wife. Your wife was useful when she was silent. You disliked her when she started answering." He flinched. "I deserve that." I said nothing. He looked around the lobby, then back at me. "Can we sit?" "No, Elena, please, 5 minutes. You have 3. His laugh was broken. "Still negotiating. Always should have." That hit him. He looked down. "I made mistakes. That is what people call choices when consequences arrive. I panicked when you got sick." "No," I said. "You planned." His eyes shone. "Cassandra complicated everything. Cassandra did not draft trust documents. Cassandra did not text about using a medical angle. Cassandra did not move money from our joint account. No, but she, do not put your spine in her purse now." He closed his mouth. For the first time in our marriage, Adrian had no elegant sentence ready. Rain ran down the lobby windows behind him. The fire cracked softly. Somewhere, a couple laughed near the bar, unaware that my old life was trying to bargain for resurrection beside a hotel fern. "Cancel the sale," he said at last. There it was. Not "forgive me," not "how is treatment," not "I will sign anything you need." "Cancel the sale." I smiled. Adrian saw it and looked ashamed. Good, at least shame had found him eventually. "My mother has nowhere to go if we lose the family house," he said. "You have your own house. It's mortgaged." "By choice. We used Hawthorne for networking. My clients are asking questions. The firm is nervous. Actions have consequences. Cassandra is hysterical. I recommend a hotel." "Elena." "No." He stepped closer. "I can fix this. We can restructure. I can sign a postnup. I can end things with Cassandra." I stared at him. That was the final death of my marriage, not the affair, not the documents, not the courtroom. The offer to discard Cassandra once she became expensive. A man who could betray me for her could betray her for comfort. There was no love here, only appetite changing plates. "You should go," I said. "Did you hear me? I said I can end it." "I heard you, and I am not a vacancy you return to when your other room floods." He looked as if I had struck him. "You loved me once," he said. "Yes." The word hurt, but it was clean. "I loved you enough to confuse sacrifice with devotion. I loved you enough to let your family call my inheritance ours. I loved you enough to make excuses when you came home smelling like another woman's perfume because I was afraid of what truth would cost." My voice stayed steady. "But I do not love you enough to die twice." His face crumpled. Then, for a moment, I saw the boyish charm that had once undone me. The man who danced barefoot with me in the kitchen after our first anniversary dinner. The man who wrote my grandmother a thank you note after she gave us crystal glasses and told him never to mistake Elena's kindness for weakness. He had been warned, so had I. "Please," he whispered. "No." I turned toward the elevator behind me. He said, "What am I supposed to do now?" I pressed the button. "Live in a house you paid for." The elevator opened. I stepped inside. This time, when the doors closed between us, I did not feel haunted. I felt the lock slide into place. The sale closed on a Tuesday. It rained that morning, not dramatically, not like a movie, just a steady coastal rain that blurred the city windows and made everyone in Simon's office speak a little more softly. I signed the final documents with my full name, Elena Beatrice Hart, not Vale, not anymore in any place that mattered. The wire confirmation arrived at 10:17 a.m. For a second, I simply stared at the number. It was not market value, it was not sentimental value, but it was enough for treatment, enough for legal fees, enough for a new apartment no one could claim as family space, enough to restart my design studio when my body stopped feeling like a battlefield, enough to never again confuse financial dependence with love. Simon handed me a copy of the recorded deed. "Hawthorne Villa now belongs to Moretti Holdings," he said. I expected grief. It came, but not as a wave, more like a hand touching my shoulder from behind. My grandmother had loved that house. I had loved it too, but she had not left it to me so I could be buried alive under its roof. "Good," I said. Simon watched me carefully. "Are you all right?" "No," he nodded. I smiled a little. "But I am free." That afternoon, Moretti Holdings took formal possession. I did not go. Nora sent a single email confirming the transfer, the security change, and the removal schedule for all remaining unauthorized belongings. By 4, my phone began buzzing. Margaret called 11 times, Robert called twice, Marlene texted once. "Marlene, I told them not to go there." They went anyway. I stared at the message, then another came. "Marlene, Your former mother-in-law tried to enter through the side gate with Cassandra. Moretti security stopped them. Police were called. No arrests yet. Everyone is screaming. I closed my eyes in my last life. I had imagined them inside Hawthorne after my death. Margaret moving through the kitchen, complaining about the staff. Cassandra in the blue room, touching the windows. Adrian on the terrace, drinking expensive wine paid for by the woman he had abandoned. For years, I thought revenge would feel like entering the house and throwing them out myself. But real revenge was quieter. It was never letting them enter at all. The police report later described the incident in dry language. Margaret Vale attempted access to property no longer owned by her family. Cassandra Wren claimed personal belongings remained inside. Adrian Vale arrived and argued with security. Moretti Holdings provided recorded deed and access documentation. Parties dispersed. Dry language can be beautiful when it tells the truth. The next week was uglier. Adrian's firm placed him on leave after donors withdrew from 2 client events and a compliance review began into funds he had moved through property restructuring invoices. Margaret's charity board asked her to step back. Temporarily, which in Harbour Ridge meant permanently but with better flowers. Cassandra disappeared from public view for 3 days, then reappeared through a statement from her own attorney claiming she had been misled about Adrian's marriage, finances, and intentions. That almost impressed me. She pivoted faster than anyone. Adrian responded badly. Texts leaked, not by me. I had enough evidence. I did not need more mess. The leaked messages showed Cassandra asking when the sick wife problem would be resolved. They showed Adrian promising her the main suite. They showed Margaret discussing which rooms would need repainting. After Elena transitions to long-term care, Harbour Ridge Society loved euphemisms until they were read aloud after that. Nobody wanted lunch with Margaret. Nobody wanted Adrian managing their family money. Nobody wanted Cassandra near their husbands or their guest houses. Consequences did not make them better people, they simply made them less comfortable. My divorce mediation happened in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the financial district. Adrian looked thinner, not ill, just diminished. Cassandra was not there. Margaret was not there. For once, he had come without an audience. His attorney did most of the talking. Simon did most of ours. The terms were cleaner than I expected because Adrian no longer had leverage worth pretending over. Separate property confirmed, no spousal support from me, joint account reconciled, with Adrian responsible for unexplained withdrawals pending further civil action. Medical privacy confirmed, no contact except through counsel for 6 months. Adrian signed slowly. I watched his hand. In another life, that hand had closed over mine in a hospital bed and guided a pen across a page I did not understand. Now the pen shook in his fingers. I did not help him. After the attorneys stepped out to copy documents, Adrian and I sat alone for the last time as legal spouses. He looked at the table between us. I went to Hawthorne yesterday, he said. I said nothing, not inside, just the road, still nothing. They changed the gate. I had heard Moretti Holdings had replaced the old wrought iron with a matte black security gate that looked less romantic and more final. It doesn't look like your house anymore, he said. It isn't, he nodded faintly. I keep thinking about your grandmother. That almost made me angry. You do not get to use her now. I know. His voice cracked. She saw through me, didn't she? Yes, he laughed once, empty. She told me at the wedding that you were braver than you looked. She was right. I know that now. No, I said, you know I can hurt you now. That is not the same thing. He looked at me then, really looked, maybe for the first time in years. I did love you, he said. I believed him. That was the saddest part. Adrian had loved me in the way selfish people love shelter. He loved the warmth, the ease, the admiration reflected back at him. He loved my patience because it made him feel generous. He loved my house because it made him look rooted. He loved my forgiveness because it meant he did not have to become better, but he had not loved me as a person separate from what I gave. I know, I said. Hope moved across his face. I killed it gently. It wasn't enough. His eyes filled. I am sorry, he whispered. In my last life, I would have given anything to hear those words. In this life, they arrived after the funeral. Be sorry, I said, then be different for someone else, far away from me. The attorneys returned. We signed the final page. When I walked out of the building, the rain had stopped. The city smelled clean in the false way cities do after rain, as if water can wash intention from concrete. My treatment began the following Monday. Chemotherapy was not poetic. It was nausea, metal mouth, bone-deep exhaustion, cold hospital blankets, insurance forms, and learning which friends could sit quietly without demanding optimism from me. Marlene came once. She stood awkwardly in the doorway with tulips and guilt. I should have said something sooner, she said. Yes, she flinched. I did not soften it. Then I moved my bag from the visitor chair. You can sit, she cried for 3 minutes. I let her. Then I asked if she wanted coffee from the machine down the hall because hospital coffee punished everyone equally. She laughed through tears. That was the beginning of something, not forgiveness, something more cautious, a boundary with a chair on the other side. Dr. Cross told me after 3 months that my response was strong. After 6, she used the word remission carefully, as doctors do, like it was a glass they did not want to drop. I did not celebrate with a party. I went home to my new apartment. It was smaller than Hawthorne, on the 8th floor of a brick building with an unreliable elevator and morning light that crossed the kitchen floor in a bright square. I had chosen every piece of furniture myself, not for donors, not for in-laws, not for a husband who needed rooms to impress other men. For me, a blue chair by the window, a round table that seated 4, not 14, shelves for my grandmother's books, no guest room. That was deliberate. I reopened my design studio slowly. At first, I took small projects, a reading room for a retired teacher, a clinic waiting area that did not feel like punishment, a studio apartment for a woman leaving a marriage with 2 suitcases and no idea what color she liked because no one had asked her in 20 years. I knew how to design for women learning to breathe. One afternoon, almost a year after the dinner, I had to drive along the cliff road for a client meeting. I could have taken the inland route. I did not. Hawthorne Villa appeared beyond the cypress trees like a memory that had learned a new language. The roses were gone from the front wall. The gate was black. Cameras watched the road from discreet angles. A small brass plaque read private property, Moretti Holdings. I slowed, only for a second. The house was still beautiful, but it no longer called to me. Near the gate, a car was parked on the shoulder, Adrian's old car. He stood beside it, looking through the bars at the long drive. His hair was longer than he used to wear it. His suit did not fit as perfectly. He looked like a man waiting for a door that would never again recognize his hand. He turned as my car approached. Our eyes met through the windshield once. That would have been a scene, a pause, a swelling score, a woman remembering love, a man remembering regret, the possibility of forgiveness standing between them like weather. But my life was not his redemption arc. I lifted my hand once, not warmly, not cruelly, a goodbye with no invitation inside it. Then I drove on. In the rearview mirror, he grew smaller, the road curved, the villa disappeared ahead of me. The sea opened wide and bright under the afternoon sun. For the first time in either life, I did not think of the house as something I had lost. I thought of it as the place where I finally stopped being taken, and I kept driving.